Hello, my name is Jacob Watson, and this will be a short video talking about Ebola virus. So, what is Ebola virus? It is a severe disease that is often fatal, and it's classified as a viral hemorrhagic fever. These are diseases that often cause internal bleeding and affect multiple organs of the body. Ebola is a disease caused by a group of viruses in the Ebola virus genus. These specific viruses include the Zaire species, the Sudan species, Thai forest, Bundibugyo, Reston, and Bombali. Only the Zaire, Sudan, Thai forest, and Bundibugyo infect humans. Reston causes disease in non-human primates and pigs, and the Bombali is only known to be found in bats, and not known if humans can contract it. So here I have a little bit of information on the history of Ebola. It was first discovered in 1976 near the Ebola River in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is how it gets its names. There were actually two simultaneous outbreaks of Ebola. The Zaire and Sudan species both arose at around the same time. It was believed to be transmitted to humans from a bat or a non-human primate, but they're not sure which one it came from first. The largest outbreak of Ebola occurred recently in 2014 and ended in 2016. This was a species of the Zaire strand of Ebola. The epicenter of this outbreak began in Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. There were 28,616 cases from these countries and 11,313 deaths. A total of 36 cases and 15 deaths occurred outside of Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia in other countries such as the USA and a few countries in Europe. But luckily they were able to contain these to just a few people and were able to keep that from spreading any further. The most recent outbreak occurred in Uganda from September 2022 to January 2023, and luckily that's also been eradicated. So here I have a map from the CDC's website about Ebola to kind of show where all the major outbreaks of Ebola have been taking place. The white countries with the names are where the outbreaks have taken place. The different colored circles represent the different strands. The red is the Zaire strand, and you can see that the Zaire strand or Zaire species is the most severe of the Ebola species. And the size of the circles, the bigger the circle, the more cases were involved in that outbreak in that area. So here I have some of the ways that Ebola is transmitted. It is believed that the natural host of Ebola is originally the fruit bat, but again, they're not 100% sure. It is transmitted to humans through direct contact with the bodily fluids, meat, or organs of infected animals when people hunt these animals and probably don't cook the meat to its proper temperature. It spreads from human to human through the broken skin or mucous membranes when you come into direct contact with bodily fluids or contact with an object that's been contaminated by bodily fluids from a person that's been infected or a person that has died from Ebola. Pregnant women that catch Ebola and recover can still carry the virus in their breast milk also. So that leads to young infants catching the virus from their mothers. So symptoms of Ebola, the incubation period is 2 to 21 days after you come into contact with the virus. Incubation period meaning when the period of time that symptoms are likely to set in. Ebola cannot spread from person to person until the symptoms show on a person. Early symptoms, the dry symptoms include fever, headache, fatigue, sore throat, and muscle aches, flu-like symptoms. The more severe or wet symptoms, they call them, include vomiting, diarrhea, a rash, impaired kidney and liver function, and internal and external bleeding. And death can occur as fast as within 6 to 16 days in the worst case scenario. So here I have some treatment methods for treating a person that's infected with Ebola. Uh, Supportive care is rehydration to replace bodily fluids and medicine to help the fever, intestinal problems, and blood pressure. There are two monoclonal antibody treatments called Inmazeb and Ibanga, approved by the FDA for treatment of Ebola. Monoclonal antibodies are proteins produced in a lab that act like the body's natural antibodies. These two monoclonal antibodies, and specifically bind to the glycoprotein surface of the Ebola virus and prevent it from entering a person's cells. These two drugs are only known to help treat the Zaire species of Ebola, which is the most prevalent species. Here I have some prevention and control methods for protecting against the Ebola virus. First, avoid the bodily fluids of a person or animal that is infected with Ebola. This includes the urine, blood, feces, saliva, sweat, vomit, and breast milk. Also, it's recommended to avoid sexual contact with someone who's been infected until they have been tested to assure the virus has gone from their system, even after they've recovered from the virus. The WHO recommends that males specifically avoid sex for 12 months from the onset of the virus or until their semen has been tested negative for the virus twice. Also, bloody bandages and dirty medical equipment can also transfer the disease to doctors and nurses working with people that are infected. And since Ebola can be transferred from the body of a person that has died from Ebola or the body of an animal that has died from Ebola, it's recommended to avoid touching the body of a person that's died and to practice safe burial practices. So there have recently been some developments as far as vaccines for the Ebola virus. In December 2019, the FDA approved the first vaccine for Ebola virus called Everbo. It's a single dose vaccine used to protect against the Zaire species of Ebola only in people 18 years or older. It was used on 350,000 people during the 2018-2020 outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. A vaccine for children underwent research during the same outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but unfortunately it hasn't been approved yet. And it's also the two-dose vaccine that requires a booster 56 days after the initial shot. So in the case of in a case where you would need immediate vaccination, it wouldn't be helpful.